an ideal choice for engagements, weddings, Mendi parties, exhibitions and seminars. Supported by the latest sound and video technology, air-conditioned and free Wi-Fi. Contact us today and see how we can make your vision a reality. The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, located on Featherstall Road South, Oldham. A perfect choice for your perfect day.
Very special live transmission. It's actually a test transmission that we've only just gone live today, and alhamdulillah already we've had lots of people interested in finding out what it's all about. Well, we're due to start in a few weeks' time, but because of the local elections that are coming up in 2019, we've been asked by the viewers out there that have worked with us on different projects to actually start the transmission and ensure that the people whom it matters to, the voters, are connected to their candidates. So today we're in the Oldham studio and we're live with two very special people. I'll introduce them shortly. So what's happening around us? We've got the local elections in 2019, but Oldham has something very different to bring into the mix. Around a third of the council is up for the re-elections, and there are some ex-party councillors who actually moved from what was a Labour seat to across to an independent seat. So that's become a bit of a challenge for the actual council, and they've ensured in terms of what they can do in making up for this, well, let's just say a bit of a challenge, by actually launching some new candidates, but new they may be as candidates but not to politics. So Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed Azam, how are you today? Yes. So Alyas, I'll call you Azam because it's live, you can tell, because actually your brother is Azam. So Mohammed Alyas, how are you, and welcome.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam, and thank you for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to speak to your viewers, and assalamu alaikum to all the viewers who are watching us.
Thank you. And we've got somebody who's here to, somebody that's known to a lot of people across the board. We've got Councillor Ateeque Ur-Rehman. You are actually obviously a sitting councillor. You're also a member of the Policing and Community Safety Cabinet. And you've been a councillor for a number of years. How many years have you been a councillor?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, thank you for inviting me, and I'd like to congratulate yourself and the whole team for launching what seems to be a very exciting and challenging initiative.
Thank you.
And I'm pleased that one of your bases is in Oldham.
Yes.
That will hopefully put Oldham on the picture. I first got elected in 2004. And I've been a councillor since, from the same ward where Mohammed Alyas is contesting from this year. So I could say that I've got a fair bit of experience in contesting elections in that particular ward.
Excellent. The ward that we refer to is Medlock Vale. and you've actually lived nearby in the area, in the Coppice area, for around 35 years. And you are a postmaster, aren't you, by profession? Do you continue to do that? Is that something that you're still doing?
It is, yes. I came into this country in 1983. Since then, I've always lived in Coppice, which is just on the border of Medlock, Vale ward. And I've studied locally, in local schools and colleges. I went to university in Bradford. That was the only time when I was away from Oldham. But since my arrival into UK, I've always lived in Coppice.
You did your bachelor's degree, an engineering degree in chemical engineering, didn't you? Some time ago. You are a family man, mashallah. I've got 5 children. And like you said, you are from the area. One of the things when I was actually looking at your background and looking at the information that's out there, or anybody can actually access that information, you can go on to the Oldham website and the council website, and obviously the literature that's out there, is that you're very, one of your strengths that you've said in terms of the literature is community, isn't it? So can you tell us a little bit about what is it that you feel that you're strong in when it comes to communities?
Yeah. As you said, a long time ago, in 1993, when I graduated in chemical engineering, at that time the country was going through a very deep recession. There weren't a lot of jobs available within chemical engineering industry, and what I decided to do at that time was to start taking part in youth and community work. And I've been doing youth and community work since after my graduation in 93, 94. I've managed the Pakistani Community Centre. I've worked in local government in regeneration department and performance management. And also, all my life after graduation, I've done all sorts of different community work, so particularly on voluntary basis. I've been on a number of different boards.
I can see that you were a board member for different key organisations in Oldham: Feathershow and Fitton, New Deal for the community, NDC, Oldham Leisure Limited, OCCL, and the First Choice Homes, FCHO. And back in 2001, you were a finalist in the Pride of Oldham Award. So quite an accolade in terms of your community initiatives and what you've done there. If I could come to you, Councillor, in terms of in selecting a candidate, and this is something that comes up again and again, and I'm sure many of our viewers are aware that it's a bit of a challenge in this particular ward, because the previous sitting councillor has now moved across to become an independent candidate. So there is a bit of a challenge there. When deciding a candidate, and obviously go through a lot of scrutiny, all parties have to make certain decisions. How relevant is it in terms of community initiatives and other initiatives that people are involved in prior to that?
It's absolutely essential. When the Labour Party, it's a quite a long-winded selection process that we have. For those viewers who don't know this, you have to be a member for at least 12 months, and you have to show a campaigning record for the last 12 months when you apply to go on the panel of candidates, what you have done for the party. And there's a specific question in your application form about your, apart from the political aspect, the community involvement and your background, what you have, what you can offer in your role as a councillor. Because at the end of the day, the political shift is towards localism. Yes. And local councillors very much are local leaders of that area. And so we look at their leadership skills, we look at their community involvement, we look at how good they will be in terms of organising communities, and how good will they be in terms of being the spokesperson for that community. So when they fill the application form in, it has to go through like a shortlisting process. Yeah. Then these candidates will be invited for an interview, and also there will be reports by different aspects of the party about their history and their campaign records. So once they've satisfied all these criteria, then their name is proposed to go on the approved list of candidates. Basically what that means is any one person on that list is capable of becoming a councillor in any of the wards in Oldham.
Okay.
I just want to make it clear that the law is that to contest a local election in any borough, you must be either a resident of that borough or you must have substantial business interests or work. So you could practically be a resident of Oldham, but if you work in another borough, you could stand in elections in that borough on the basis that you work. You know, there's a significant interaction in that. So we've done all that.
And that's part of the selection process.
That's part of the selection process, which is very rigorous. And I'm proud to say that the Labour Party has fielded a lot of, you've just quite rightly said in your introduction, new candidates, but they're new in the sense that they might be contesting elections for the first time, but they've been around for a long time. They've got proven record in community development. They've got proven record in campaigning. I mean, Alyas, I think, has been a member for the Labour Party for more than 20 years.
Well, I've got 30 years
30 years.
here.
Well,
30 years.
I stand corrected.
And a union member since 2005. I was just doing a bit of research.
So after doing all that, we then invite people to say, express their interest. Which area would they like to stand? And then we do a shortlisting, and then the regional panel, people who are not from Oldham, from outside, because then they won't have any bias for or against anybody. They come and they interview these people, and then out of those they will select the best candidate for that particular.
So Mohammed Alyas has been selected. He is the actual candidate for Medlock Vale, the actual award. Now, as we've just said, you became a member around 30 years ago. You became an active union member from 2005, and like you said, back in the 90s when you were a student, you became involved in community initiatives and you were an activist in Labour. And as I said, but sometimes it's a bit of a Freudian slip, because you have got family who've been actively involved in the Labour Party. Mohammed Azam himself, your brother, who's been quite senior in the party, and in terms of. So how much of a relevance does that make in deciding to become a candidate?
I don't think that actually makes much relevance, because as you've rightly said, that I've been a member for 30 years.
Yes.
And during those 30 years, or most of those 30 years, I've been quite actively involved in all sorts of campaigns, from local elections, European elections, as well as general elections. So I have been involved at all sorts of different levels. I've been active at our local ward level, and also the CLP level as well. So I don't think my family members' involvement within the party and the unions had much relevance for my selection, as Ateeque has just explained, because it's quite a rigorous process, and I don't think anywhere, any relevance to family.
But it does help in terms of your own grooming and political, in terms of your own understanding of the system, doesn't it?
It certainly does, because my brother Azam's been a mentor for me, and I've learned a lot from him, and also a number of times whilst he was a councillor, I worked with him to campaign for his elections. So as I said, I've learned a lot from him, so I owe him a lot.
In terms of the community itself, one of the let's just say one of the challenges is in terms of deciding on a candidate is obviously their own political in terms of understanding in communities, but you yourself as an individual, in terms of a personality, how you would work with the communities. Now, in terms of looking at the official stats, if you look at Medlock Vale, around 61% is of white background. This is going back to 2011 census, so they might be slightly out of touch. And of which 22%, around about 22-23% are of Pakistani origin, around 6 to 7% are of Bangladeshi origin, and around 8% are white or haven't stated. So it's the fact that you happen to be from a particular heritage, you don't actually represent the majority, do you? And is that relevant to you?
Of course, yeah. The ward, Medlock ward, Vale has got like 4 different geographical areas,
Yes.
and within those there are distinct communities. For example, on Kopis you got predominantly Pakistani, Kashmiri,
Yes.
and some Bangladeshi communities, and you got in Hadisho it's pre-mixed with
Yes.
a lot of Asian communities as well as the white communities, and then we got Fittonhill and Bardsley village, which is predominantly
Yes.
white. And as a councillor, I will be working across the whole ward, representing all the communities, and obviously the different geographical communities have different needs.
Yes.
So therefore, depending on what the needs of that particular area are, right? And we with the Ateeque and our colleague Yasmin will be working together to try and make sure that we represent all the communities.
Councillor Ateeque, in terms of when candidates who are selected, one of the things that is looked at together with professional political background, etc., and involvement in the party, how much does ethnicity or gender or your faith, how much of that is relevant when selecting, or is it relevant?
Gender is relevant because within the Labour Party we have this principle that there are 3 candidates, 3 councillors in each ward, and it's the Labour Party policy that at least 1/3 must be women.
Okay.
So, for example, in our ward, inshallah, once Mohammed Alyas gets selected, there will be 2 male and 1 female. Apart from that, your ethnicity or your cultural background or your religious background plays no significance. The only test is that are you capable of representing the different communities that you will be elected for? I certainly have no hesitation in representing all the different communities in my ward. Medlock is one, I think, the only ward which has a significant Indian community, and we have a long sort of history of working with the Indian community. Fittonhill is mainly a working class area, and we have no issues, and I'm confident that Mohammed Alyas will be an excellent representative for the whole of the community, but certainly it would go against the law of the land if we were to decide candidates on the basis of their ethnicity. So that is the capability that's looked at.
It's quite interesting. The reason why I bring that up, because there are many questions asked in terms of cultural backgrounds and heritage, etc. And sometimes it's assumed, with some particular, in some cases, that some parties choose candidates because of ethnicity, because of the award that they represent. It's quite interesting, like you said, in Medlock Vale, that significant white community, and whether that's relevant or not. I mean, that is the debate. I mean, it's quite interesting that, so in terms of proactively, the Labour Party, as you mentioned, is wanting at least a third representation of female. In terms of representation of female, it is around just over 50%. So that is moving. Is that moving towards trying to have it mirroring the community? Where's the third come from? I'm just wondering.
It's basically come from because historically women are underrepresented in different walks of life, but particularly in politics, in elected positions.
Yes.
And that's when the Labour Party took the bold step of what we call the positive action.
Yes.
So this is a starting point. We've come from a point where it was less than 10% or so. I'm just giving you a random example.
Yes.
And it doesn't just stop with the councillors. We also have a similar sort of principle when we select our members of parliament. Yes. Labour Party is, I think, the only party which goes for all women shortlist. So, and they only do that on winnable seats. So unlike our competitors who might put token ethnic candidates or female candidates in seats where they know they're not going to win, but it looks good that we've got 5 candidates from this section of the community. What we do is we select all women shortlists from winnable seats.
So strong. Strong
so because obviously women are also underrepresented, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not a maximum, it's a minimum. I can give you an example of a ward in Oldham where all 3 councillors are female. So one has to be a woman, but then that doesn't stop the other two becoming female councillors as well. So the aspiration is that, like you said, that hopefully one day the makeup of the council will reflect the makeup of the community.
Yes.
And like you said, more than 50% are women. We are actually, in terms of gender, just to let you know that we have a female chief executive. We have a female deputy leader of the council.
Yes.
Most of our senior management in the council is women, and we have a female member of parliament in Debbie Abrams. So in terms of gender, I am quite confident, and in fact proud, that we've got a good record.
Okay. For those of you that have just joined us, we are live, and if you've got any questions to ask, then please, we are on Facebook Live. I think we're on YouTube Live as well. So if you want to send any questions through, then do. I have got, in terms of the actual screen in front of me, so I can read out some of those questions. Before the break, I just want to touch quickly on economy and income. If I can come back to you, Mohammed Alyas. In terms of the community that you're working with, if we look at Medlock Vale, in terms of, you've said that different pockets of different communities who have different needs. The part-time, you have around about the average income, for example, the Oldham average income is around just over 24,000 and a half household income, but within your particular award that you're standing for is just over 21,000, so it's just significantly lower. If we look at them in terms of employment rate, the Oldham average is around about 58% of employment rate, but the employment rate within your particular award that you're standing for is around 53%. And then if we look at people who are on out of work benefits or claiming benefits, the average is around about 17%, but the number of claimants that you have in that particular award is around 21%. So in terms of economies, just before we go to the break, we are going to go to break in the next minute or so. What sort of things do you feel that you as a councillor can do to make a difference?
I think the reason why Medlock Vale is low sort of paid wages and high unemployment is because of the low skills level of the people that live within the ward, particularly around Fitnale, around Copies, where we've got people who got low levels of skills, and one of the things that we as a council need to look at is how we can improve our children that come out of secondary education, so that they come up with higher education, higher qualifications, so that they can go on to learn, acquire better skills, and therefore better jobs that can pay higher wages.
I mean, you came over as a teenager with very little English, and alhamdulillah, you really, I mean, you are somebody that can be used as in terms of somebody that can do it, you know, as improving that you can actually, if you do the work and you're hard and you actually graft it, you can, and you're a postmaster yourself, you're a graduate. So how can you, when speaking to communities, how can you relate to that in terms of those people that are here who've got all those opportunities but still not aspiring to actually move forward?
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to look at, because we need to motivate our young people. We need to get them to aspire for higher levels. And I was one of those kids when I came over who wanted to get into education, who wanted to get a degree and get better employment, because when I graduated, alhamdulillah, I was the first graduate within our family.
Wow.
And now,
Yeah.
you know, alhamdulillah, there's about
Loads of them.
10 of our children that, you know, all my nephew, nieces, my
Yeah.
own daughters just graduated in law, and my son's studying sports sciences. So there are a lot more children that are getting their degrees and hopefully get better jobs. And also one of the issues we've got in Oldham is there aren't a lot of high level, high paid jobs available within Oldham, and either a lot of the highly educated people need to need to move out into other cities and other places where there are
for opportunities,
high level jobs, so that we get a bit of a brain drain where people then move out of that particular area and go into near to where their employment is. So we need to look at that as a council and see how we can try and better.
And how is that happening, Councillor Ateeque, in terms of reforming the opportunities and the aspirations? Because it's balancing that. It's having that real factor. It's all okay, as Mohammed Alyas has said, is having the aspirations. But if the opportunities are not there, then what happens?
I think it's a very critical question, and it's a critical situation that needs addressing. What you need to remember is we are actually operating in the backdrop of a real term cut in our budget in the tune of £208 million since 2010. So in the last 8 to 9 years, that's how much has been cut from our budget by the central government on the guise of austerity. What that has done is it's actually crippled local authorities. I mean, the initiatives that you're talking about, we need some freedom and we need some funding to actually look at because these are chronic issues. These are generational issues. I mean, Mohammed Alyas talks about aspiration. These are issues and they're linked. Housing, education, your health, everything is linked. And the thing that brings people down is the poverty or the unemployment. And apart from doing that 208 million cut, this government, in their wisdom, has also introduced universal credit, which has actually pulled a lot of families down from that and brought them into the poverty. We've got a situation now in Oldham and boroughs like Oldham where you've got people who are actually in employment but under the line of poverty because of these severe cuts in benefits, severe cuts in services. We in Oldham, in the backdrop of all this cut, have tried our best to invest in regeneration. And because in Oldham we do believe that to lift the communities, you have to provide them with opportunities of employment, of education within the borough. So we've got some really good initiatives that we've invested on. We've regenerated the town centre. We've got other regeneration schemes going on in the borough. We've got some other interesting ones to do with employment, because what we've had, the positive is that the tram comes into Oldham, and as a borough it's our vision that rather than using the tram as a vehicle for people to go out of Oldham for employment, we want to use that the other way around. So that would be an access point for people from other boroughs to come into Oldham for either shopping or for employment purposes.
Excellent. We're just going to go to a break, Councillor Ateeque. So for those of you that are watching the programme, if you've got any questions in relation to what Oldham is doing in terms of regeneration and actually working with their communities. So looking at one hand, we've got aspirations and hope, and then on the other side, we've got austerity drives that the population at whole, in terms of the UK population at whole, is looking at. So we're going to go to a short break, and straight after that we'll continue in terms of our mission in finding out what it is that makes a candidate the right candidate for our local elections in 2019. So see you very soon.
The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, comprising 2 beautifully decorated modern guest suites with seating capacity for up to 1,100 guests. An ideal choice for engagements, weddings, Mendi parties, exhibitions and seminars. Supported by the latest sound and video technology, air-conditioned and free Wi-Fi. Contact us today and see how we can make your vision a reality. The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, located on Featherstall Road South, Oldham. A perfect choice for your perfect day.
to UK24 TV, where today we've got two people here in the studio. We've got Mohammed Alyas, who's actually a new candidate for the Labour Party in the Medlock Vale area, and we've got Councillor Ateeque Ur-Rehman, who's actually a sitting councillor with lots and lots of experience in particular with the Labour Party. We were talking before the break, we were talking about certain initiatives, and I want to bring us back now in terms of Medlock Vale, in terms of housing and what's happening there. One of the issues in terms of communities, in connecting communities, is the housing situation and where people live, how those houses look, how they connect people in the business community. So in terms of owner-occupier, we've got some stats here, around 55%, just 56% are owner-occupied, and around 26% are socially rented, and 16% are from the private sector. I want to touch upon the private sector first. Traditionally, culturally, a lot of people have invested over the years into property. And I do know of a number of property agents out there who work with communities. As a candidate, would you be looking at increasing that proportion, or would you be wanting more people to buy their own homes?
That's a good question. In actual fact, if you look at the waiting list for people who need housing or rehousing, is quite huge.
Yes.
And you know, nationally and not just locally, we need a lot of houses. Yes. That need to be built. And in Medlock Vale ward, there are some houses that are being built, and you know, I think it's quite important that all the local authorities and all the wards sort of make their contribution in terms of whatever land is available where housing
to meet the needs of the population.
To meet the needs of the borough, and particularly the ward itself. But we do have quite a big housing association estate within Fitton Hill in particular, that's managed by Villages Housing Association there. But again, I think as Labour Party nationally, we are encouraging first time buyers and people to buy their properties to live in, because that's something that's quite dear to a lot of people, particularly people from Asian backgrounds. So yeah, we are, you know, we're encouraging people to buy their own properties, but at the same time we are also looking at different sort of housing developments to meet the need.
If I can just,
yes, of course, yes.
In Medlock,
yes.
I mean, obviously, home ownership is an aspiration.
Yes.
It's part of British culture. You know, the saying that, you know, a home is a British man's castle. Comes from the concept of owning a house.
Yeah, be proud that you've got your own home.
Absolutely. But the statistic that are in front of you does actually paint a stark picture that not everybody is able to afford to buy, or even to put the deposit for a house. So as a responsible local authority, it's our duty to make sure that the housing offer in Oldham is a mixed offer. So people who are aspiring to buy houses, there should be an opportunity for them to do that. But also there is a need for a significant social housing. And in Medlock, in fact, we have been lucky that we've had a significant number of new houses being built. The Borough Mill Triangle, all new houses. In the Primrose side, which borders with Wornath Ward, we've had a number of new houses being built. There's currently a development going on in Barnsley by First Choice Homes, the majority of which are social, sort of like socially rented houses. So even though there is a shortage, but I think in Medlock we have been lucky in attracting a significant number of new build. I think if we were to put different wards in a league, I'm sure Medlock would either come number one or at the very top in terms of, so we've been lucky. But you're absolutely right, there is a shortage of housing, and as a borough we aspire to provide that mix. So if people want bigger houses, there's aspiration to that, because housing also has a direct impact on our income. One of the reasons Oldham has been left behind by these severe cuts is that the majority of the properties in Oldham are either Band A or Band B properties. So in terms of what we raise for council tax, is significantly lower than other authorities which have houses in top bands. So for example, I think it's Stockport, if we raise 1% in our council tax every year, the income that comes into our budget is less than £1 million. Whereas I think Stockport and other local authorities, if they raise 1% in their council tax, because of bigger houses, they have a significant increase in their income. So sometimes when the government does a double whammy, they say, you know, we're not going to give you any money, say for example for social care, but the council can raise up to 3%. Places like Oldham get hit by, say, a cut of like 10 million, but can only raise 3 million by the government allowances. So we are being hit by all sides. But in terms of housing, I think there's a significant need, and as a borough we aspire to provide a mix, social and
You've mentioned a few times in terms of national initiatives, in terms of cuts and how that affects, for example, such as authorities like Oldham Council, and where you have densely populated wards and where you have issues around poverty, housing, education, etc. How much of that is fear and scaremongering, and how much of that is actually something that is significantly relevant within a particular ward like Medlock Vale?
It's not scaremongering at all. That these are factual figures for Oldham. That, you know, in the last 8 or 9 years, as Councillor Ur-Rehman just said, that, you know, we've had significant cuts, and because of those cuts, the council had to reduce or stop quite a lot of the services, and these are the services that are much needed for our communities within Oldham, particularly when you're looking at the deprivation statistics for Medlock Vale, and it's one of the sort of most deprived wards within the borough. And when the local authority has been hit so badly by cuts by the national government, then obviously that is going to have a really significant impact on the local communities, because services will need to be cut and or reduced, and that has a really negative impact on the communities.
Okay.
Let me just give you one example of, because it's upsetting, you know, when you see because we meet with ordinary people on a daily basis, and it's really, it makes your heart bleed when you look at these situations. 10 years ago, people wouldn't have heard of food banks in Oldham.
Yes.
Now, we've got, not far from where we are sat at the moment, we've got Oldham Food Bank, and the people registered to receive food from there runs in thousands. In fact, they're running out of supply. And
so it's not scaremongering.
That's not the only food bank.
You're saying
there
that's
are
a reality.
churches and mosques that actually.
Yes.
So the reality is that there are people who can't put food on the table because of the austerity and the cuts and the severe cuts that this government has imposed on.
Before I read some of the comments, I want to touch upon the communities and in terms of what's real and what's happening. But how much of the business community, I mean, this is something I asked the other day when actually the leader of the council was here, John Fielding, I spoke to him, and also spoke to the deputy leader, Abdul Jabbar, in terms of business communities and their links. If you look at Coppice and you look at those surrounding areas, and you look at Medlock Vale, and then you look at some of the other areas as well, there are significant businesses, whether they be small, medium size, but there are businesses, aren't there, new upcoming businesses. People are still wanting to make a difference. How much can they do, and what can they do in terms of your particular ward?
Yeah, in Oldham generally, our economy is quite dependent on small and medium-sized businesses. So therefore, it's very, very important for the council to make sure that these businesses are supported. And just not long ago, when we had the New Deal for communities in Haddisham and Fairnale, I can remember we invested a lot of money in the Ashton Road corridor, where we did a lot of facelifts and a lot of new business starts, and there's sort of similar initiatives that are going on at the moment where there is some support. It's not huge, but there is some support for small and medium-sized businesses.
New startups or nationally, I mean, I haven't got the figures here. I'm sure somebody will put that information in. New startups nationally, lots of businesses start up, but they're not sustained, are they? There's not the support there. In terms of a council, or in terms of the actual Labour Party, what you hope to be able to do, what is it that you feel that you could do to try and ensure that the new startup or a business, an idea, that someone that aspires to contribute to the area, so someone who's actually coming in on the tram, as you said, what would you be able to do, or what would you advise in terms of making it sustainable? Yeah.
In terms of the new startup, we do have some good initiatives. I mean, for small businesses, for a number of years now, there's a 0% rate, so they get rate relief, which is obviously helping small businesses significantly in terms of keeping them afloat, really. We have offices in the council where you would get your help and your advice if you want to start a business. In some instances, we may be able to provide some technical support as well. So we do, like I said, within the limited means that we do have, we do try to encourage, because you're absolutely right. Business is one of the things that will keep the local economy going.
Yes.
It provides local employment. If you look at the statistics, which again I haven't got in front of me, but if you look at small businesses, the advantage you have with them is that if you look at their employees, vast majority will be local people.
Yes.
Because that's the nature of their business. So the more small business activity that we have, it keeps the Oldham economy going, but it also keeps the employment local as well.
Okay. So speaking of local people, we've got quite a few people that have sent messages through. We've got people that have congratulated you and said you're the right choice, so that's good to hear. We've got Adnan Ashraf, who said that Mohammed Alyas is a very good selection to be a candidate. I've known him for a number of years, and he does lots of people in lots of the communities. We've got Fareed Ahmed, Latif Chowdhury, Armani Khan, Timur Shafiq, and we've got Kamal, and we've got quite a few people who are saying that they're extremely proud of you, so which is very good to hear ahead of the election. So thank you. So carry on with that. I'm just going to keep that there so I can actually see it. In terms of household composition, and we mentioned about in terms of families and that, in terms of overcrowded households, if I can look at that, the Oldham average is around about 7.5% for overcrowded households, but in this particular ward it's just over 9%, 9.5%. So overcrowding and dealing with poverty, and it all comes together, doesn't it, in terms of people's life choices. What would you say as a candidate, what should be done by the council? I mean, you're somebody with a vast amount of experience with the Labour Party, but as a new candidate, what can you bring into the mix?
Well, I suppose the easiest answer is to have bigger, affordable houses, so that people are not overcrowded. But again, because we haven't got the land to build big houses on, particularly around Medlock, Vale, and also it's not easy to build big houses that are going to be affordable for everyone. So therefore, I think there's a number of things that the council can look at. I know not long ago, maybe 10-15 years ago, there were some dormer grants where people could extend upwards, so that they've got extra bedrooms, so that reduces overcrowding a bit. Again, like Ateeque mentioned earlier on, that we're encouraging new buyers, so the young people that are sort of getting married, and they could be encouraged to move away from the main family, because I think the biggest overcrowding problem is particularly prevalent in Coppice area, where there are more larger families than I suppose rest of the ward. So within copies, again, these are some of the things that the council could look at doing to make sure that people are not living in overcrowded houses, because that does create that has its own problems, because particularly children and young people can't study properly if they haven't got their own study space, and then that brings in health problems within overcrowded families. So there are things that the council can look at, but again, within its means, what's available to the council.
When reading the literature that's out there in terms of what you want to be able to do, and you as a new candidate, one of the things that you said was that you were going to listen. I found that heartening, to say the least, because we're very good at talking, and for people like myself, we're very good at talking. But even as councillors and sitting councillors, or people who were involved in politics, very good at saying what needs to be done. So why do you choose to say that?
I think the main reason is that a lot of people, particularly young people, are becoming disillusioned from politics. So they're not getting involved in politics simply because they believe that the politicians are not listening to them. So I'm coming in as a candidate, and I'm saying that, look, I'm going to listen to you, right? Whether what you bring to the table actually materializes, or your demands are fulfilled, or not, I don't know, because obviously it's all going to be dependent on all sorts of different things. However, I am willing to listen and listen to everyone, within the ward and in Oldham generally.
Councillor Ateeque, in terms of listening, and there's one side is listening, and then actually having the powers to be able to make that change. Some people out there think that when you become a councillor, or even as a member of parliament, that you have some sort of magic wand and you're going to make everything happen. So if there's litter on the streets, they're all going to be cleaned overnight. The bins haven't been taken, they're going to be sorted out. If there's problems with noise or pollution or even crime, that things are going to happen. In reality, with your experience, how much power do you have as a councillor?
I think power is not the right choice of words. Influence, as elected members, it's our role actually to influence, and one of the crucial role that a local elected member plays is that you make sure that when decisions are being made, you actually contribute in the debate, and you influence that decision on the basis that how it will benefit your residents. So the traditional concept of a councillor who can get things sorted is a hoax. Let me tell you this. But we do have influence, and when we are making decisions. So, for example, let me give you an example. When Sean Fielding, who said, came to your program, and I'm sure he impressed you because he's a very impressive young
dynamic man. Yes.
One of the things that we as elected members on the ground got real sort of like stick from the residents was about the amount of litter and the rubbish that was being dumped. So when he was contesting for the leadership election, I asked him, what is he going to do about this, because that's a real concern. And apart from all the other issues that we've talked about, the last thing you want to do is go into a particular neighbourhood where you see litter everywhere, and it's just so it's just like
it's off-putting, isn't it?
It's off-putting.
You don't want to be there,
and it's demoralising.
Yes.
So I believe that Sean was influenced by not just myself, by other councillors as well. So he made a pledge that if once he became the leader of the council, he will invest significantly on resources for this particular issue. And the other one which we highlighted was potholes. So now we recruited 20 extra officers to actually do the cleaning of the streets, and you can see visibly the difference that it's made. The road network is being resurfaced and the potholes are being fixed. So we can do things like that. I think when the community or individuals rather expect that, you know, councillors will be able to do them some personal favours, I'm afraid it doesn't work like that, and that's when they get disappointed, and that's when we get some aggro.
I mean, that's probably why I use the word power, and I'm glad that you brought in the word influence. So we are going to go to another commercial break, and we'll continue our conversation leading up to the local elections 2019. Just as we've just said, in terms of lots of opportunities and lots of hope and aspirations. But in reality, how much influence can local councillors make? If you've got any questions and you want to put it, especially to Mohammed Alyas, who's an actual candidate this year for the Labour Party within Medlock Vale, then please do send them through. We've had lots of remarks there, but we would like to hear some of your questions. See you straight after the break, inshallah. Thank you.
The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, comprising 2 beautifully decorated modern guest suites with seating capacity for up to 1,100 guests. An ideal choice for engagements, weddings, Mendi parties, exhibitions and seminars. Supported by the latest sound and video technology, air-conditioned and free Wi-Fi. Contact us today and see how we can make your vision a reality. The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, located on Featherstall Road South, Oldham. A perfect choice for your perfect day.
UK24 TV, where we have a very special show. In fact, it is a first show of a series of programmes where we're looking at the local elections of 2019, and we are in the Oldham studio where we are speaking to the new candidate for Medlock Vale. I've got a question here, Mohammed Alyas here. It's from Amani Khan, who says, in terms of employment, how can students find a voluntary experience to get into better employment?
One of the things that the schools are doing at the moment is they're making sure that all the kids in year 10 and 11 have some sort of work experience with either community groups, volunteer organizations, or private sector, or within the council itself, or you know, NHS and other public sector organizations. So that's one of the initiatives that's already started. But if is it Armina, did you say?
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Amina Khan.
If Amina is talking about young people from college or university age, again, there are a lot of initiatives out there, particularly within the voluntary sector. So that's where I work, and I've been involved.
So how do they find out? Where do they go for this information?
That's a good question. I think Action Together is Action Oldham is one of the organizations that's got a project that recruits volunteers and then places those volunteers in appropriate placements. And again, if there are people out there who can't find appropriate placements for themselves. If they contact me in my role as manager of the Pakistani Community Centre, I'm sure we'll be able to
You'll
find
be able to do
some
that.
groups that can provide
Debbie
that.
Cole he has wrote, it's been reported that Medlock Vale are in special measures failing the community. How can the new candidate correct this? Firstly, is that correct? Is that it's been reported that Medlock Vale are in special measures failing the community? Councillor Ateeque?
I think that's an incorrect statement.
Okay.
No ward in Oldham is in special measures because they failed the community.
So Debbie, I don't know where you've got this information from. Perhaps you want to check that. We're not aware of this. You've got lots of positive messages here in terms of good luck. Zachariah Soul says, I've known Alyas for a number of years. He is an honest, humble and dedicated individual. I will bring hope and aspiration to the people of Oldham, inshallah. Another comment here is Sami Anj says, get Oldham working and Oldham Job Centre. So that is that something that you particularly, with your background in terms of community initiatives and working with communities, how do the job centres fit in now? I don't know. How do they connect with the local authorities and in terms of...
Well, again, I think the message is that we've got is probably trying to say that job centres are also arranging work experiences for people who are unemployed register, who are signing on and are sort of within the job centre. So the job centre staff will look for placements.
Myra writes, she says, how will you encourage people from Medlock Vale to come to community meetings? It's all very good, isn't it, having all these community initiatives and all these associations, but if nobody actually goes to the meetings, or it's the same old, you go to the same meetings, doesn't make much of a difference, does it?
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, one of my promises is that I will listen, and I think that is probably good enough to encourage people to come, and we will listen to their concerns, and hopefully, within the limits, we will try and take them forward to the relevant places where they need to be raised, and I want to make sure that we as a team become the voice of our community within Glodwick, within Medlock, and make sure that their concerns are raised at appropriate platforms.
You mentioned a few times team. How much of a team player are you?
I'm very much a team player, and I think most of my achievements in life have been as a team player, particularly Pride in Oldham Award that you mentioned, and I was very fortunate to be nominated and be the finalist for that, and that was all teamwork, and it wasn't just working with BME or Asian communities, it was working with all the communities across board, where we had people from Afro-Caribbean communities. We also had people from white communities from Fitton Hill, and people from Indian communities. And this particular work that I did after the riots in 2001, by bringing a lot of young people together and getting them to work together and play together and become friends, was sort of one of the initiatives that I got nominated for. So I think I'm there to make sure that I work with all the communities across the board.
We have come to the end of today's programme. One of the things that started off right at the beginning was in terms of looking at people's gender, ethnicity or faith. One of the criticisms that's come out from a number of campaigns, and I hope that the other candidates that we have, I've sent out a message today through our channel that I want to encourage the other candidates to come and to perhaps to deal with some of the challenges and some of the comments that have been made. The word for those that perhaps don't understand brotherism in terms of family background and your caste or creed is something that maybe is used or abused in terms of when fighting elections or getting people to vote for you. If I can bring you first in, Councillor Ateeque, you've got in terms of number of years of experience in terms of elections. Is that true? Brotherhoodism is now playing a part within UK politics.
I don't think it's true that it's playing a part. Every election, there is a small section of individuals who, because they have nothing other in terms of to communicate or to justify why they're standing or why they're contesting this election, will try to bring brotherhoodism, if you like, into the fold as their qualification to justify people voting for them. I'm very proud.
Because there is no box, is it, within the Labour Party that
no.
asks you brotherhoodism, or which brother you come to, does
None
it,
whatsoever.
in the selection process?
None whatsoever. And
I just thought I'd ask that.
No, and I'm proud that in Medlock, the people of Medlock have rejected this approach for a number of years. It's been tried with me, it's been tried with Councillor Yasmin Tour, and the people overwhelmingly have rejected that, and I'm proud of the people of Medlock. Not only they've rejected brotherhoodism, but they've rejected voting along ethnicity lines. I mean, I've had a lot of support from all the areas, Barnsley, Fitton Hill, Hathershaw, in the Coppice area, and that's the reason why the Labour Party wins with a significant majority. I mean, if you look at the difference between the recent elections between the winning candidate Labour and the person that comes second, sometimes there's a difference about 1,500 votes, 1,400 votes. So that's how big the lead is, and that's because the people of Medlock are very astute. They know what the issues are. They know who are the people who will address those issues, or who have the ability or the capability to address these issues. And that's why, for year on year, they've always rejected brotherhoodism. And I'm sure if anybody's thinking that they can play that card this year, I'm afraid they will be heavily disappointed on the 2nd of May.
Well, it will be an interesting question that I will put to other candidates as well. We have come to the end of the programme. Medlock Vale holds a population of just short of 14,000 people. They are all voters. They all have the opportunity to vote. If there's one final message that you would give as a candidate for the Labour Party in this particular ward, what would that be to them? Yeah,
my message to all the Medlock Vale voters is that on 2nd of May, come out and vote for Labour, vote for me, as Mohammed Alyas. And as you said earlier, I'll be there. I will be listening to your concerns. I will be forwarding your concerns onto the relevant authorities, and I will also be available for you. So vote for Labour, vote for Alyas.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming in. So we have come to the end of the programme, where today we've been speaking to somebody from the Medlock Vale, a new candidate, a growing number of people who feel that they too have a right to switch if they have not been given that opportunity to be able to represent certain communities, have moved on to independence or other parties. So it's quite interesting to see that what the new candidates have got to say, and they are here on a challenge. So for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to leave your remarks, then please do continue to leave your remarks. We do read them and we do act upon them, and that's why we're here tonight, bringing this special edition, a special programme that we've actually started earlier than we actually thought in terms of the actual channel, bringing the local elections of 2019 to your households. So make sure that you continue to look after yourselves and look after your neighbours, because in looking after ourselves, we look after each other. Stay blessed and hope to be able to see you very soon. Assalamu alaikum.
The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, comprising 2 beautifully decorated modern guest suites with seating capacity for up to 1,100 guests. An ideal choice for engagements, weddings, Mendi parties, exhibitions and seminars. Supported by the latest sound and video technology, air-conditioned and free Wi-Fi. Contact us today and see how we can make your vision a reality. The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, located on Featherstall Road South, Oldham. A perfect choice for your perfect day.